I have that skills, then it doesn't work. So it's about the recruiter and hiring managers, their attitude as well.
Kind of looking at the total package of the person, right? And how
Yeah.
you versus this is what the piece of paper said. So, I used to tell hiring managers, we're not hiring resume writers, we're hiring people. So
That's true. That's so true.
It's okay, just because it's not how you would format it, or, it doesn't, it's just like, hey, we're talking to a person. And if they're fit from a recruiter, or you meet someone, you think, hey, they got some potential. I mean, you got to explore further, because that's what we're doing this for. We're not just putting bums in seats. That's not what it's about. I was going to ask Nisay, like, in terms of like really getting prepared, and that's transferable skills, and how you really create that narrative, like Vanda, was able to sell her sabbatical. Like, how would you say candidates then could alter their mindset from that perspective?
So first of all, so we're setting intentions, and then we're talking about visualization, right? There's no amount of mindset rehearsal you can possibly do to be effective unless you're doing your research.
Yeah.
And right, so I think it's not only the role itself, but if you can dig deeper and try to understand, like, is this a replacement or is this a new role? Who is the hiring manager? Do a lot of research on who that individual is. I strongly recommend too, like, research the company. Does the values of the company resonate with you as an individual? Does the values and the mission statement get you excited? Because it's going to show in the work that you're going to do in preparing for that interview process. And
I think, sorry to interrupt, but also like so much more than what the website tells you, right? Like, that was a really great marketing PR. Someone wrote this great sentence, but what else is happening with that company in the real world? And does it align with the mission statement? Are they really about, being socially responsible, for instance?
So if I may add to that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I always tell job seekers is to treat the interview as a learning process. Do not think in terms of black and white. Don't think that, hey, I have to absolutely get this job, otherwise I'm doomed. Treat it as a learning experience. Maybe you go in, you learn more about the organization, you learn more about what their mission statement is, how socially responsible they are, and whether it resonates with your own values. You may come out of that interview a better version of yourself. You may know, okay, is this something that I see myself doing for a long period of time, or do I need to change my search criteria? So that can actually help you get better insights into your own skills.
One of the things candidates always, like, with Destination CEO specifically, they tell me is like, oh my God, this job is perfect for me. I love this job. It's going to be amazing. This is the one for me. And I'm like, you're basing that on a job posting. Done your research, met the managers, know anything about the culture. So you're getting emotionally invested in something based on very little information. So, it is a learning experience. And eventually, I mean, you're going to get to the place you want to get to. Like, I tell my candidates, you won't miss what's meant for you, but it takes work. And I think that's, I don't know what's going on in the water or air right now, but I'm getting a ton of candidates message me the generic, this is me, this is my background, please let me know if there's any openings. And because of the construction industry, it's a ton of like project managers and IT people. I'm like, have you checked our website? Have you looked at my profile? Have you done your part of the like, this is for you. So have you done the work for yourself, or are you expecting a stranger to hand you your career? And it just seems, it's all a part of the process. But if you got to get that dream job, it's had to work for it, right? And obviously there's privilege, there's opportunity, there's luck, there's all of those things that take into consideration. But just, expecting it's going to be easy is one of the biggest frustrations that people are experiencing now, right? Especially in COVID. I mean, take COVID off the table. It's still hard, and no one's going to hand you a job. Add COVID, and the competition out there is pretty high.
Sina, I think it's combination that people are frustrated if they're applying for high number of jobs and not getting response. So it might not apply, of course, to everybody, but I'm finding that a lot of people kind of go in a way to supplement quantity of application with quality.
Yeah.
Because you feel good, right? And it's very psychological. You feel like I'm doing so much. I apply for 100 jobs today, right? And you
Yeah.
cannot. It's really becoming, anyway, I'm not gonna get it. Going to mindset. Anyway, I'm not gonna get it. So why to try harder? So, but then it's kind of this loop and never-ending circle of applying with very average quality, if not sub-quality applications, and you feel good. It's a busy work.
Yeah.
And we kind of candidates tend to feel like, well, I'm doing so much and it's unfair, I'm not getting anything. So sometimes it's really just important to call on it and look in the mirror and just, yes, it's not necessarily fair or unfair. It is what it is. And sometimes, yes,
Absolutely.
probably some applications are not treated fairly, but that does not mean that now candidates will get that result by increasing number of applications. So it's a little bit of a difficult for candidates, but having ability to reflect on it and pause and say, okay, I need to do something differently.
And what do they get from that? You think about that emotional, feel good moment of like, I'm busy, I'm doing all this stuff, but like, what is that doing for you if it's not yielding the real result?
That makes me think of that old saying, measure twice, cut once.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like
it.
people are cutting down trees with very dull axes where they should be really sharpening the saw, sharpening the axe, and then pick and choose the trees that they want to cut down and cut that down. And I only mean that in a metaphorical sense, not in a bad environmental way.
No, we're environmentally friendly. There are no paper resumes needed anymore, folks.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you guys think? I saw this, there was a post on LinkedIn, and it's you guys would have seen it, many versions of it. It's the put the human back in human resources. It's, hey guys, it's COVID out there. You should be grateful, recruiters, that you're working. But to us job seekers, you should really be letting us know, pick up the phone, tell us why we didn't get the interview, give us the feedback. What do you think? Is that a nice thing to do? Is that the right thing to do, required? Like, how do you guys approach that? So I'll pick on you, Cohen. What do you think of that?
So if I put myself in the shoes of a job seeker, I would really like to know why I did not get that job. Where did I go wrong? Not because I have some grudge against the recruiter or the company, but because I'm trying to improve myself. I'm trying to avoid the mistakes that I may have made in this interview that led to me not getting selected. I'm trying to avoid those mistakes, and I would really, really appreciate if someone can highlight those for me. So it's a improvement process for myself, and I think a lot of job seekers would appreciate that.
I agree. I just and so what I tend to try and do is, so those people that give me the generic email on LinkedIn, I try and be like, hey guys, like, I don't hire these types of positions, nor have I done it in 10 years. But if I could give you some advice, because probably you're gonna drop me at the end of this message, pay attention to someone's profile. Did you even read my profile? I work at a company. I'm a corporate recruiter. Then did you go to my company's website and check their careers? You're gonna get more yield for your effort if you do a little bit of work here up front. So I try and do it in that perspective, but I find that I just don't honestly have the time. And I know that sounds bad, but I also don't always have the feedback. I don't know, there was just a better candidate. You're great, but the stakes are pretty high right now. Competition's fierce. So if you are a 9 out of 10, I'm going for the 10 out of 10 candidate. So, I mean, I think it means well, and I think there still is a lot of human resources, but like with any industry, there's good and bad. Leo, what do you think? What do your candidates like talk about and what they want, and how do you think we can manage those expectations?
And of course, like the candidate, they would love to hear the feedback, like because they can improve. But I think maybe Amir and I talked about it before. It's like just because Sina, we are in human resources.
Yeah.
It's a very sensitive information sometimes, especially like in the recruitment process. I just want to be real. Like sometimes we have some internal candidates, like but unfortunately, sometimes the people, they don't want to share this information. But to me, it's just like you can be transparent, right? We have so many rules in HR. We have to consider the internal candidate first, and then the external candidate. And I think this piece of information you can share with the other candidate, and at least they know, okay, so maybe I can change my job search strategies or target the other type of role or target the different organization. Yeah, I think if the hiring manager, they are open mind to give like a constructive opinion, that would benefit the candidate for their next interview.
And if I can say one thing, and sometimes this happens, a manager's interviewing someone, they clearly don't think this is a person that's right for the role. So then they'll ask them a really tough question, a really difficult question that for whatever reason, the candidate's going to bomb. And then that manager then has, okay, in terms of feedback, okay, we asked you this question, you clearly did not answer it. You lacked a specific example. Detail was lacking. It just didn't answer what we were asking for. I've seen that happen. So,
Right.
and that's feedback, legitimate feedback that can be given back to candidates.
And especially internals, like they really will get that feedback because it creates a development plan, and it's part of your company culture if you're going to really value that. I think it's just so hard with externals, and you don't want to, say the wrong thing that puts the company at risk. And sometimes it's subjective. Like I have coached more so senior level candidates where I'm like, hey, when you kind of missed the ball here, or the mark here. Vanda, what were you going to add?
Just build on what was said, that it is very, I don't think it's a yes, no answer. I was on both sides of the table. I was recruiter for many years and I was hiring manager for many years. And I can appreciate motivation from both ends. And, I think most of it was mentioned. My kind of rule of decision was always, if I'm engaging this candidate as a hiring manager or as a recruiter at certain level of interview, so not at the pre-screen when I'm kind of asking really preliminary question, then I think it's a courtesy to provide some sort of feedback. And sometimes it is, as somebody mentioned, there was a candidate who was somehow more suited. Sometimes there isn't specific feedback enough to provide. And honestly, we don't know as a hiring manager or recruiter candidates well enough to provide coaching, or feedback that is meant as a coaching for bettering, right? So we follow very specific questions and we compare candidate on a set of criteria. So it's sometimes a little bit unfair to be expected to provide feedback for development opportunity. That's not really objective of interview, right? And I had experience as well that candidates, they want to hear feedback, but they don't want to act on it. They really want to justify their position, and it's just unnecessary. I think that's what sometimes people try to avoid. So there is an opportunity for both ends to really reflect how deep we can go with feedback and what can be resolved. Sometimes is, when I had the candidate asking for feedback right away, and by right way, I mean, when I see that they, very often candidates, if not always, ask for feedback, why, I wasn't selected. When I see that there is that intention, when they kind of position in a way, as Parndeep said, that I want to kind of really see what are my opportunities for development for future interviews. I am really open to engage in conversation, but sometimes it's conversation really, or more than one conversation, rather than this kind of standardized same sentence from 100 candidates. I would appreciate your feedback, right?
You're right. You can tell, right? The genuine, I want to learn, where have I kind of gone off the rails, or what can I improve on? And not so much overselling, let me convince you, no, you were wrong. Let me get this chance, versus I need to do better. Where did I go off? How can I improve?
Yeah.
I was actually going to jump to Amir. So tell me,
yeah.
You
like
go.
I just want to say, like, with candidates, like, and probably a note to any candidates getting any feedback, like, by the time you're getting feedback, the decision is done. So
Mhm.
it's not like you have one last chance. Maybe I'll be able to convince a recruiter that no, you really made a mistake to hiring that other person. You should really hire. So I think if you're lucky enough, you're fortunate enough to get the feedback, take the feedback, maybe ask a few clarifying questions, say
Mhm.
thank you, and improve. Like, at that point, the decision is done. So take the feedback, move on, and do better.
And I think maybe it's helpful when you're ending, let's say, a phone interview, first level, understanding what the recruiting process looks like. What are the timelines and how is this going to be 3-level interviews? So therefore, are you going to interview with a senior director so by then, when you kind of move up, decisions can take a little bit longer when there's more people involved in the process, getting that consensus, coordinating schedules, coming to a final decision. And you know what? You might be right neck and neck with the top candidate, and then they got to make a decision, and they're still kind of, so sometimes I find like the approach really matters when you're trying to get feedback, or how you talk to the business, because we're all doing our best. No one's intentionally dragging a hiring process because we don't care about candidates. Amir, I think you wanted to talk about different types of interviews. Do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, absolutely. I find, like, in a lot of the people I've been mentoring, it's sort of a one size fits all. And exactly, you're right, Sina. Like, there's different types of interviews. So, like, typically you apply for a job, then there's the phone screen, the phone recruiter. You're talking to a recruiter, and maybe it's a 15-minute, chop. Let me determine if you're good to move forward, or or it's 30 minutes. It doesn't go too long. I think at that point you got to be respectful of who that person is and what they're looking for. And then sometimes it's top down or bottom up. So if it's top down, then it's like you're meeting with the hiring manager, or maybe their boss, then maybe a peer group, maybe there's a panel interview. Sometimes there's an interview. You should go through the process to determine a cultural fit. So there's all these different types of interviews, and I think people should just be aware of the type of interview and what the angle or the aspect that's important there. So I just want to see what do you guys think, and what's been your experience with those different types of interviews?
Well, Nisa, what do you think?
Well, this goes back to preparation and the research. So I've conducted different types of interviews, and I've been in different type of interview situations as well. You have to be ready for the different types, and so this goes back to Sina saying, "Hey, do you know the recruiting process?" There might be like 5 different stages in that interview process where you're going through the different styles. Make sure that you're rehearsed and you're comfortable with the different styles, right? There will be certain interviews that they will put you in a stressor situation just to see how you will react in that type of situation. And so I encourage people to do research, watch the different videos and resources available, put yourself through difficult situations so that you are essentially you're prepping yourself for the big show. And I think we've alluded to this earlier, but make mistakes, bomb an interview, because you need to go through those different interview styles to really learn. I think all of us have kind of gone through that at some point in our careers, and on both sides of that interview table. And I think practice and rehearsing is key.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want you to intentionally bomb an interview, but I don't like stressing my candidates out. I don't like that tactic. So it's not really my style. But because I already think they have potential, and I want someone to showcase their best in that moment. If that's their one shot or 1 or 2 shots, second level interview, whatnot, I want them to do their best so that once they get to the organization, then the learning starts. Like, they're not coming on board as perfect candidate, 100%, all the responsibility, all the experience, everything, and then they come in and it's shoo-in. There's no transition, there's no learning curve. They're perfect. That never happens. There's always a learning curve. So kind of I never like to stress my candidates. But alternatively, I find like when I am kind of chill in my interviews, and sometimes people get real comfortable and casual with me and overshare. So I think, part of that mindset of preparing, still always understanding that you're selling yourself, you're the product. Like, what do you don't throw your product on the table and go, hey, do you want it? And so knowing your audience is something that's key, and being prepared so that you can present your best self. And sometimes you can do every single thing right. I've told the participants this, you can do everything right. You can do everything right and not get the role. And you're still amazing. You're still qualified. You're still good. Your experience, your skill sets, they're still valid. But there might have been an internal promotion. There might.
And very often there's more than one great candidate, right? I'm sure those who are in a hiring manager position, you probably at least few times in your career had a situation that you can say anybody from top 3 would be great for very different reasons. And even if you would hire, either of them, you would be happy. And the decision, for the one person is for many, many factors, not just sort of kind of fit for the role or experience. But, that's very good point, Sina, that, really kind of remind yourself, especially if you got to final stages of interview process more than once, or you got to that stage, that it's real validation that you were already kind of validated for the role. And there are little pieces that you might not have in control that play a role in a decision making. So you should really kind of pat yourself on the shoulder, understanding that you selected the role that you're good fit for, and you should continue to probably target similar roles. But on the point of interviews, Sina, I did like to stress candidates when I was a recruiter. Not always. Sometimes candidates were over prepared, and I not to stress for this, not to have any kind of pleasure out of it, but for me it was really important to see how candidates react. Nisha and Amir mentioned that you might bomb a question or a mistake in interview. It happened to me many, many times that I perceived this candidate who stumbled but were able to pick up. And then some candidates are so perfectly rehearsed and they're great, and they make one small mistake or they start in the middle with something, and then it goes downhill. So for me, this is actually the transferable of how they act in a situation in real life. Interview interaction, there will be projects, there will be difficult meetings, and how they react to what happens, how they can sort of go back and how the situation, that's what sort of will be that attribute rather than rehearsed skill that I think is always winning combination.
I used to also pay attention with internals. How do they deal with it when they don't get the job? Because external candidates, you might not see them again, right? They can kind of go off into candidate world, but internals, you kind of get to see them still. And if they're like, I'm a great leader, I want this leadership role, I want this promotion, they say all the perfect things about themselves, how adaptable they are and everything in the interview. And then, go with another candidate, and then you see this like sour attitude. I'm like, I thought you were adaptable. You can't handle feedback. This is some other signs of leadership we got to get you to work on. But they sometimes forget, like, there's so much in the assessment of a candidate that is more than the 45-minute interview and the resume, right? There's so many things we learn about candidates throughout the entire process that goes into making decisions and giving us a sneak peek at what they potentially could look like. It's not perfect, but it's assessing talent as best as we can.
And have you had the candidates that you went back to, not selecting for one role, but being memorable or kind of thinking this is a great candidate and going back to that candidate sometimes in the future with different role? Had you had those situations?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I love those situations.
So that's a long, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a missed, we've talked about this before, a missed opportunity in networking. I didn't get it, close the door, I don't need you anymore, I'm not going to call you. Because I've hired someone after 2.5 years. I've hired someone after 8 months. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. Just be patient. I won't forget you. I'm going to find a way when the right opportunity comes. And then I hire them. But, we kept in contact, and it was genuine. And, when someone has it, they're marketable. They've got other opportunities. But if down the road everything was good, I know I can pick up the phone and call them and say, hey.
And one thing I'd just like to add, when I've been an internal applicant in the past, and I didn't get it, and you go back, one thing I always made sure I did was I'd always go, if I'm going back to that same manager again, improve, right? If they gave me feedback, and make sure those things that they pointed out before, I worked on it and I improved it, and show that I've added to myself, added to my skills as a candidate. So I'm not just the same person over again. It's I'm the same person plus 15%.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great opportunity. Listen, guys, Mina's going to swap back in, which means I'm going to swap out. But listen, great discussion. I love it. To our new mentors that joined us on the roundtable today, thank you. You got a few more minutes. Just I'm going to be out, so Mina can come in. So thanks, guys, for the great discussion.
Hello.
We miss you.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody said that, because I had no power, and I'm like, this just sucks. My show, and I'm not in there. So, and unfortunately, because I had no power, I had no, I missed the entire show. So now I have to watch the recorded version. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it. There was a question I wanted to ask, and unfortunately, because I wasn't a part of the show, I don't know if it was answered. But since we have representation from such large organizations, I want to ask each of you. People have been so focused on the fact that networking is extremely important that many are not applying for jobs unless and until they find an internal connection. Now, Wanda, I know you're with RBC. Nisha, I know you're with a large bank. I know, Pavan, you're with a large organization. Amir, you've been involved with large organizations. Leo, you're involved with large. So I'd like to get your opinion. A lot of people are thinking that the fastest way, or the most, the best way is from internal applications. I'd like to know from you, how can diversity and inclusion work if everybody is only focused in getting internal referrals versus direct application? How important is direct application? So Wanda?
Well, from the process perspective, you have to apply, whether you have somebody you know at the organization or not. From the legal and sort of kind of process standpoint, you have to have your application submitted. And of course, it increases your chances if you know somebody, and not only having somebody who refers you, but it's actually goes, and that's where you should really focus on. You have opportunity to learn about organization more, understand culture and how to position yourself, understand what type of maybe candidates are needed in that particular area, or how that department or division is structured. I think this is what networking actually should really bring to the table. You can be referred, but if you're not suitable candidate, you will not be considered. So there is some minimum kind of baseline for everybody to be at least considered. And then even if you are referred, unless you are referred by CEO, and then it's kind of must interview or must hire, and I'm joking here, but really you will be competing, and no organization and no person who refers you would really justify hiring somebody who is not competitive. So referral goes only so long. That's sort of kind of my opinion. It definitely helps, but not only because you have that stamp of somebody who works at the organization, whether it's a referral program that organization would have, or it's an email to HR or recruiter, depends on the size of organization. But I think really it comes with that knowledge and better understanding of the company. But it goes only so long. So don't hesitate, if you don't know anybody at organization, to do extra research and to apply with confidence.
Thank you, Wanda. Leo, what would be your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you know somebody in the organization, of course, I will use it like the network, the way that I want to obtain more information about that organization, about the culture, how about the management style, to get like a part of the research tool, instead of like just having the idea like, oh, if I know someone, then it's easier for that person to refer me. So it's, first of all, it's like create like a favoritism, right? It's not going to make that work in some way. I think for like to know somebody in the big organization definitely help the research process, and at the same time, maybe there is some opportunities like in that organization, then you get like the first information from that person, and also like when you do the networking, you know, you network with so many people, maybe many of you they are not really working with you and they don't really know you well, they don't know you, your working style. Sometimes it's difficult for people like, hey, I just refer you, oh, using my name or using my status, right, to refer you to a position. So I think you just have to be like a reasonable expectation, like if you try to connect with people like in the organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Leo. Nisha, what are your thoughts?
I tend to side with that authentic, real relationships with somebody within an organization can certainly be an advantage in landing at least in an interview, and then and take it from there. I also wanted to say that the traditional application, I think Wanda had mentioned this, it's the beginning of the process. Like it sets the intention of you going after that role. And so I think it's absolutely a part of the process, and you should enjoy that part of the process. It's you putting your name on a potential position to say, I am the best possible candidate, and it's the first step. I agree with Leo and saying that do the research about the organization. I think we talked about like the culture, what they value, because it gives you a connection to who you are, and that may be showing in your profiles that are visible to people. And the third point is, even if you don't know somebody in that organization, first of all, if you really are motivated and passionate about the role that you just applied for, try to make that connection. And it may be sometimes, very nerve-wracking, but I would go and still attempt to do that and let the person know authentically, I've already applied. I'm really, really excited about what the company stands for and its values and its mission statement. And I was wondering if we could at least connect and discuss what your opinion is. If we're not doing that, still remember, in the day and age that we live in, you still have the ability to be visible to that organization, right? So become active on their social networks. Do your research. Remember, it's a blessing and curse. So if you are going to make some kind of comment that could be, their CEO might be on that same thread or whatever the case may be, use tact. But you do have an ability to kind of showcase who you are, even if you don't know somebody in the organization.
Yeah,
good point.
Excellent. Thank you. Pavan, what about you? You work in the health sector.
Yep.
So
well, you have made excellent points, all of you. Like Wanda said, the application process is the first stage that everyone has to go through. Knowing someone within the organization definitely gives you an advantage, and it allows you to get access to the information, such as the projects that are going on, the non-confidential information, the tools that the organization might be using, if it's an IT company, what kind of softwares they are running. And going back to Wanda's point of highlighting your transferable skills, if you have that information and you do not have a direct relationship with the company, when you go to the interview, you can highlight those transferable skills based on that information. You know that, hey, we know that you're working on these projects. I have worked on these projects in the past, and I can help the organization excel in these areas. So that definitely gives you an advantage, knowing someone internally in the organization.
awesome. Thank you. And Amir, what would be your thoughts on this? Because you've been on both sides, so it's very interesting.
I've had people connect to me, and the first thing they say is like, "Hey, can you get me a job? Can you refer me?" And I'm thinking, like, hold on a second, like flip the script, right? Like, I don't know the quality of this person's work. I think Leo was really being nice about it, but I'll just be blunt. I think if you don't know a person, and if you don't know, because they're going to represent you if you're making a referral, and either it could increase your stock in the company or decrease it. So it could impact you in terms of like your social credibility in the workplace. So I think you have to really demonstrate. You have to really know the person, and then I would refer them. If I've just met you, no, 100%, I would not refer someone I don't know, because I don't want to negatively impact my organization or myself. So I think for any candidate who's doing that, to build a relationship, really get to know the person, and it's not something that's going to happen in 5 days a week. You have to invest the time, and you have to take a long view of it, I would say.
Thank you. So in conclusion, I guess you applications are just as important as building relationships, but make it authentic. Right? Well, thank you so much. As I said, I really apologize. I have no control over Mother Nature, power, whatever. But thank you. I think this was a fantastic show. And special thanks to Sina for being the host for the first part. So I really, for the entire part, actually. So thank you, Sina. I hope you get my message. I really appreciate you. And I hope that this was helpful. Yeah, if you're watching the recorded version, please share it with your network. This is amazing information. Everything about jobs, everything about job search. The mentors are phenomenal guides to sharing what happens in the real world. Take this and go with it. Connect with the mentors. Ask these leaders questions that you are struggling with. I didn't see many questions, so I'm assuming that the questions were answered before they were asked. We're working towards an empowerment week coming soon. So keep your calendars free for August 15th and stay connected, because I'm coming back with a lot more to offer. Thanks very much. Wish you all a wonderful long week.